This is my bargain Facebook Marketplace find. A MacBook Pro 2015 for £20. But of course, there's a problem. That being, it doesn't turn on. I plan on bringing my £20 MacBook Pro back to life with Ubuntu. I've heard Ubuntu runs particularly well on these older Macs, so I'll be testing it out. Before I can actually test out Ubuntu on this 10-year-old Mac, I need to fix the battery issue and figure out why there is no operating system on it currently. To kick off, I brought this adapter to make my normal laptop charger work with this MacBook. And it boots up, but it doesn't seem to be an operating system on here, which makes sense for what we're about to find out. And also, the battery is 100% dead. The second the laptop is unplugged, the laptop dies. To see what's going on, I open up the back of the MacBook and the first thing I notice, there's an oily residue covering the logic board and the fan area. And secondly, there's no NVMe drive, which I wasn't too worried about at this point, as I have several spare 512GB ones kicking about.
Oh, for f***'s sake, Apple.
But it was at this point I've realised Apple is Apple, and it takes a non-standard NVMe drive. So one day, and one Amazon order later, this little adapter turns up, which will hopefully resolve the problem. Before fitting the NVMe, I give the Mac a decent clean with some IPA to get the bulk of the oily residue off and brush out as much dust as I can, because the inside of this Mac is gross. Adapter time. Seems simple enough. And it was. It's nice when things work. Time to fix the battery issue. I ordered this battery from Asmark on a Black Friday deal, so it didn't cost a fortune. The battery replacement wasn't overly tricky, but I was constantly worried I was going to end up in a lithium battery fire at any point. After flopping the speakers out of the way and pouring what seemed like a lot of IPA into the battery bay to dissolve the old glue, I could pry out the old batteries and scrape off the remnants of this industrial glue, which was hard work. After not burning my shed down, I fit the new battery, which all goes according to plan. It's kind of interesting just how much MacBook is battery compared to logic board and computing hardware. While I've got it open, I repaste the CPU. The thermal paste doesn't seem that bad, to be fair, but I've got this Knock 2 thermal paste on hand and it's an easy thing to do. I never know how much thermal paste is too much, not enough, or just the right amount. Trying to fit this rubber bit back around the fan was probably the trickiest part, and that's the top of my head for your viewing pleasure. One final clean and then fit the case and screw it all back together so we can see how I've done. Giving the laptop a once over with some cleaner, and I hit the power button by mistake, and we get to hear the classic Mac startup sound. Which means battery replacement must have worked. Next I need to see if this NVMe adapter is working. To install Ubuntu on this Mac, first of all, I go to Ubuntu's website, download the latest ISO file, then create a bootable drive. For this, I'm using Balena Etcher. Most people will use a USB stick and make a bootable USB. I have this NVMe in an adapter I prefer to use for these sort of things as they're dramatically faster. With my bootable NVMe plugged in and beer opened, I crack on and install Ubuntu. This is my first time using Ubuntu and it's as simple to install as Linux Mint as far as I can tell. I did try and get my capture card working for this so I could record it, but something like HDMI out not working on Macs until a setting is turned on, stopped me being able to record the screen initially. First thing I do once I get Ubuntu installed is go and get screen recording set up to improve the video quality. Before updating the system or doing anything else, I get OBS installed, and we can switch over to a screen recording. With all that set up, the first thing I want to open is HTOP. I was hoping HTOP might be installed by default, but it wasn't. But one terminal command later, and we can get HTOP running so we can keep an eye on the CPU and RAM usage. If you've not seen HTOP before, it's a terminal-based interactive system monitor which shows in real time CPU and RAM usage. With HTOP running in the background, I do the first thing you should do on any fresh Linux install: update the packages. Although I managed to mess up the command first time around, and after doing a terminal-based command update, I did go on to find the built-in software updater, which I'm assuming would do the same thing without having to use a terminal. With the system updated, it needs a reboot. I get on and do this, and on the reboot, I'm struck by just how quick this 10-year-old MacBook with Ubuntu is. This would put most modern machines running Windows 11 to shame. And of course, any Linux install wouldn't be complete without looking at NeoFetch. So a quick look at NeoFetch to see the system stats, and we can carry on having a look around. I'm a big fan of this bit of software called Stacer. I was looking for it on Ubuntu's App Center, but couldn't see it there, which I was surprised at. So I had to install Stacer for a simple terminal command. And next, a little bit of housekeeping. Ubuntu dark mode to save my delicate eyes. Also need to address Firefox, dark mode, and swap up Google for our avian non-stalking friend. With the bare bones setup done, I want to get some tracking on the CPU temperatures going. I've read that MacBook Pros from this era can run a bit on the hot side. Some people claiming their machines regularly hit 100 degrees, so I'm curious, with all this oily residue around the fans that I found when I took the back off, how will my MacBook's cooling system actually cope keeping this 10-year-old CPU cool? And you can see in the terminal the CPU's 2 cores. I leave this visible where I can, and surprise, surprise, it's hot. Now, I'm curious to see what Geekbench score this 10-year-old machine will get. I'm not expecting much from this 5th gen i5 with only 8GB of RAM. We see some impressively high temperatures with the Geekbench test running. It peaks at 105 degrees and starts to thermal throttle. Around where the CPU is on the MacBook, it's very hot. Not surprisingly, given that the CPU is hotter than the boiling point of water. We get a single core score of 872 and 1597 multi-core score. Nothing that is going to blow anyone away. Here is some comparison Geekbench scores. The results of my T480 laptop running Arch Linux that I use as my daily driver. And then this score is of my relatively modest desktop running Windows 11 that I solely use for my CAD work. After doing some general snooping and looking around the system, I'm quite impressed with Ubuntu. The look of it is great, and the MacBook is handling it well. I wouldn't say it's as user-friendly as Linux Mint, but it's really not far off, and definitely in the same camp. One minor annoyance I did notice, it doesn't come with LibreOffice or OnlyOffice pre-installed, these being the Linux equivalent of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. But they are both available on their App Center, so only a few clicks away from installing. Normally, I use LibreOffice, but lately I've been moving over to OnlyOffice, and they both pretty much function exactly the same. Yeah, it just comes down to preference, really. Something I think these older, now lower-end spec laptops are excellent for is using them for remote access. As I said before, I'm a CAD draftsman, so I have a desktop that I do my CAD work on. And as we all know, the nature of desktops makes them static. So, if I want to sit down on the sofa and do some CAD doodling, I can't. But by installing 2 bits of software, both of which work extremely well on Linux, I have the ability to using this MacBook. The first bit of software for remote access is Rustdesk. Really, it's the only one I've used, and it works so well I didn't bother with any else's. As a bit of luck, there's a specific download for Ubuntu, so the install is 100% terminal free and easy. The next bit of software to download and install is Tailscale. This avoids having to set up port forwarding and gives you an incredibly secure encrypted tunnel to your chosen device you wish to remote access. There is minor use of terminal for this install, but nothing that should put people off. And that's my £20 bargain MacBook Pro given a new lease of life. Saved from the scrap bin, I have a new to me usable platform. I'm planning on using this MacBook Pro to have a play about with a few other Linux distros. I think the first up will be Pop! OS and Fedora to see which one of them is most Mac OS like. If any of you have any recommendations you would like to see, let me know. Thanks for watching. Joe.